Hey everyone, and welcome to Quantum Acacias. My name is Dee Dee, and I am so glad to be here with you today. Okay, today we are going to be talking about a very interesting dream that I had. This is a part of the Red Heifer dreams. Someone's called like Red Heifer prophecies. But I had like a series of dreams about the red heifer. So I'll link the first one, which talks about the Lakota tribe, or should I link the next one? Maybe at some point when I do like all of them, I'll just like list all of the links in the description box of each of them and make it really easy. But this is a part of a series, okay? And this one actually isn't the next dream in the series, but it's the one that I feel the most called to talk about today. And I was actually just listening to something about the movie Donnie Darko. And it's really interesting because actually ever since I have a really fun story time about Donnie Darko actually and Medusa. But ever since I have seen Donnie Darko, every October 2nd, something crazy has happened. Like, if you hear my Cyrus story time, and I'm not sure when I'm posting it, but if you hear that one, that actually happened the night of October 2nd going into the 3rd. And I didn't actually even put that together until I heard Donnie Darko today. It's been a while since I've watched Donnie Darko. And then it was so cute because there's really weird, this weird bunny is not the cute part, but there's like this really weird like bunny or rabbit or whatever in Donnie Darko called Frank. And I've actually seen some like ET kind of beings that look like that. I might talk about that another day. But anyways, and I was thinking about this black bunny being, this little wild hare just came out of nowhere in the parking lot. And it was so cute. We have wild rabbits. I don't actually know if it's a hare. Maybe it was a rabbit. I don't really know the difference, honestly. But it was really cute. Maybe it was a bunny. I don't know. Are they wild? I don't know the difference between those things, child. But it was really cute, and it was hopping, and they are so fast. I remember I was walking along like a path, like just to go to the park, and there's like a wild rabbit. I'm just gonna call it a rabbit. There's a wild rabbit on the trail with me, and I got, I guess, too close to it, and I thought it was one place, child, and it got to hopping, and I lost track of it, and then it was completely somewhere else. I was like, how did you even do that? Like, how did you even do that? Because I thought that I was watching you. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so maybe that's also significant in some type of way. So pay attention to that if it comes up, okay? All right, what else was coming up? Also, there was something that I was just listening to, and I was like, oh, I should probably mention that. Oh, yeah, there's this new super cluster of galaxies. I don't know if it's new. It's new to me, called Boss. And I think that's so interesting because Ray and I have been talking recently about archetypes and the archetype of a hustler, the archetype of a boss, and the archetype of a benefactor. And I aspire to be a benefactor. That's what I aspire to be. So I've been really paying attention when I see Boss. And there's like this super galaxy of cluster of galaxies called the Boss. And it's fun because I don't know if it's like connected to the Great Attractor, which is also this, whirlwind of all of these different galaxies, and they're actually pulling our galaxy towards it. And my midheaven actually sits across from the Great Attractor. So my is it my north node too? I think my midheaven and south node are conjunct, and then my IC and north node are conjunct. And I can tell you, child, It is a struggle. Okay, it really is. I'm also like a Capricorn, but my moon is in the fourth house. I have a lot of these like placements of like, even though trine is the highest aspect of my chart, I feel like there's like so many square energies. But I also feel like it kind of keeps me in check so that I don't like go too far on either side. So I do like it, but it's very difficult to like work out. Okay, it is. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about today. Let's get into this red heifer. Okay, let's get into. And it's funny because growing up in the '90s, like heifer was like almost like a curse word. You know, like you don't call a woman a heifer. You know what I'm saying? But then you go back into like ancient Egypt, and literally the heifer is like the goddess. And it's very funny how that works sometimes, where something that was like of reverence and things like that, and then it like becomes over time like not that great, like shittim tree. Shittim tree is actually the tree that the gods are supposed to be born from. So when people say that they are the stuff, I mean, it is actually kind of leaking them to royalty, honestly. Okay, let me focus. Let me focus. Okay, girl, we're like 6.5 minutes in. Let's focus. Okay, so this is actually the second dream that I had in this series of the red heifer, the red cow. Okay. And so I actually woke up in this dream. I actually woke up in this dream in January, and I believe that this was like the 2nd or 3rd of January, if I'm not mistaken. And I was standing in this cul-de-sac, okay? Now, it's funny because at that time in January, we were looking for a place. We're finally about to move out of the, what do you call it? Out of the hotels, like, and actually find like a rental place. And a lot of the rental places, like rental homes that kept coming up, were homes on a cul-de-sac. And right now, I can't remember if like, oh yeah, this dream was definitely before the cul-de-sac. So it was like the 2nd or 3rd of the new year. So it was funny because actually after this dream, it was a lot of the time where some of the homes that we went to go see, actually a lot of them were actually in cul-de-sacs. Now, we don't actually live on a cul-de-sac right now. However, at the end of our street is a cul-de-sac. So we don't live in the cul-de-sac. We live on a street that leads to the cul-de-sac. Now, I also believe that this cul-de-sac has to do with being born in the cul, or being born in the veil. And I think there's some type of astrological something about the cul, and I'm pretty sure that it has like some type of significance to it. I can't remember right now. But this cul-de-sac is very, very significant, right? Because when we talk about being born with a veil, right, that means that a baby is born within their amniotic sac. So a cul-de-sac, born in the cul and the sac, okay? Now, a lot of the time when they talk about a cul, it's talking about reaping something, harvesting something, okay? So I'm not exactly sure how that's connected exactly to this right now, but I wanted to mention that because I do feel like it is connected. So in this dream, I was in this cul-de-sac, and I was at the center of the cul-de-sac, okay? So like literally like the homes on the cul-de-sac, and I was in the center. And there's also like, I was like a dot, like when you see like the sun glyph, 833 Newt numbers. Newt is how you pronounce it, like Newton, okay? But a lot of people call her Nut, and she is also directly connected to Neath. But she told me to not pronounce it Neath, it's pronounced Newt. So they're connected to each other, even though they're sometimes associated as different goddesses. I think that they are different dimensional aspects of each other. So anyways, back to what I'm saying. Okay, so like the sun glyph, and there's the dot in the center and then the circle around it. So it's like I was the dot in the center of the cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac was the circle around me. Okay, and I've also seen this in another dream where I dreamed about I don't actually know who he is, but in the dream, I saw his name like Boulder. Like Boulder, like the god with the mistletoe and stuff like that, and how mistletoe went from like a weaponized thing to a symbol of love, a really great transformation. But in the dream, it was actually spelled like Hirt, Llyr, who is different from Balder, but he had like a B on the front of that. So it was like, but so it wouldn't, well, if it's Hirt, I guess it would be Piert. Maybe it's beard, like a beard. I don't know if that's, I don't know. But in the dream, I was like, oh, this must be Balder. But I don't know if it was Balder. But anyways, so this dot in the center with the circle, I have come to understand when I see that it has something to do with, and I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, but it has something to do with, it's actually the reality around you that's moving and not actually you. So that means that something dimensional, something quantum is about to happen. So it's saying that you are the center point and you are just changing your perspective. It's actually the reality around you that's moving, okay? And that's exactly what happened. So I was standing in the center, and I got this like overwhelming feeling that like I couldn't really move. And it was like my legs or my body was like really dense, and it was almost like I like forgot how to move for a second. Like not literally forgot, but like it just felt like I couldn't make the mind body connection. And I think it was because I was disoriented, maybe from whatever was going on that I couldn't see with my eyes. So anyway, so I was thinking, I'm like, okay, but I have to move because there's something going on. And what was going on was that I was smelling, and this was like the weirdest thing because I have not smelled burning flesh before. I've not. But all of a sudden, I started to smell the ashes of the red heifer in the air. And it was crazy. Like, and instantaneously when it hit my nose, I knew exactly what it was. And I was like a mix of like, I can't believe they did that. And also a mix of like, okay, where do we go now? You know, like kind of like, okay, I can't hyper focus on it because they've done it. And then now I need to figure out like, okay, like what's our plan of action now? Because something is definitely about to change. So as I was smelling it, what I was starting to, it was almost like I was kind of adjusting. And so I was like, okay, I don't know how to take a step, but I can at least pick my foot up. And that's what I did. So I at least picked my foot up. So I picked up my right foot. And then I put, okay. All right. Like, am I not supposed to be talking about this or what? Okay, I'm going to keep going and let's see what happens. Okay. So I picked up my right foot. I'm just telling the story, guys. It's cool. I picked up my right foot, and so I was like, okay, I don't know if I can take a full step, but at least I can put my foot in a different, I'm starting to get like a major pressure in my back. That's usually when there's an energy around. This energy is like, you need to pay attention to what's going on. Okay. But I guess it also is like, be careful with what you're saying. I don't know what that push means necessarily. Oh, shit. Are they playing? I mean, shiitake mushrooms. Oh, those are kids. I thought that was a homeless man. They're kids. They're running after each other. Okay, anyways, focus, Edie, focus. Yeah, I just start feeling like, do you guys have that sometimes when you have like something spiritual going on and then it's almost like something is like pushing a thumb into your back? Like, okay, I can feel that. All right. Okay, I'm going to be real careful with what I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to really, really be careful with what I'm saying. Okay. I've been having some weird phenomenon at the house. So, quantum Acacias activated. Okay. So, I was like, okay, I can at least put my foot down, not in the same place that I picked it up. Maybe I can't take a full step, but I can at least put it in a different place. So I push my foot out, and as I'm bringing it down, I literally start to see multiple versions of me, like literally like Doctor Strange. Like when she pushes him out of his body and he's looking at all these versions of his astral self, like all the selves in between his consciousness and his physical body. It literally looked almost exactly like that, except for we were on the ground. So it was like multiple versions of me horizontally about to take a step, and it was crazy sauce. And as I was doing that, I could start to see that smell was all within the dimensions, and I instantly understood that all these different selves were like parallel dimensional versions of me. It was crazy. So I put my foot down, and when I put my foot down, it was just me again. And so I was like, whoa, am I going to see this every time I pick up my foot? Oh, like this says Ranger. And so I'm like, okay. So then I was like, okay, let me just try to pick up my other foot. Let me just see if I can walk. And it was like I was getting adjusted to this new way of things happening, because it felt like I was there, and I was like, okay, I guess it's just like a new way of existing. So anyways, so I pick up my foot again to move it, and the same thing happens, but this time there's a doorway that appears. Okay, so not a door, but like a doorway, and it wasn't an archway, like it wasn't covered, it was like still kind of square, but rectangular. But there wasn't a bottom piece. So it wasn't 4 pieces. It was 3 pieces. Just the left side, the top, and the right. Okay. Ooh, I'm starting to get hot. Ooh, child, I'm starting to get hot. I'm starting to feel that push again. Okay. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can walk through this door. Okay. I'm starting to feel flushed. That's wild. So I'm like, maybe I can walk through this door. So it was something about when my foot hit the ground the second time that I got momentum. And so all of us were walking through all of our doorways. So every version of me had a doorway. Okay, so we're walking through the doorways. And then it was like everything snapped back together and I was in the cul-de-sac, okay? Now, the thing that I forgot to say was that before I picked up my foot, I forgot to say this, before I picked up my foot, the cul-de-sac was changing. Okay, so I was standing in the center of this cul-de-sac, and let's just say like it was a group of like Victorian style homes. Then it was like that picture, that camera, like little toy. We had it in the 90s. I don't know when it started, but like you click it and then another picture comes. Click it, another picture. Click it, another scene. That's exactly what the cul-de-sac started to look like. So I was staying still and the cul-de-sac was shifting. And it was almost like it was different homes, but they were all in the same position. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. So like they're all Victorian style homes. And then something shifted, like the literal reality, like went on itself, like it went upside down. And then when it went upside down, a new cul-de-sac was there. And I was in the center of that cul-de-sac, but they were all different homes, but in the same places as the other homes. I feel like that's really significant to say. Okay, so going back. So when we were stepping through the doorway, something snapped and I was back in the center of this cul-de-sac, and it wasn't the original one. It was a different one. Okay. But I was still in the center, still in the middle of the cul-de-sac. So even though I was walking through the doors, it snapped and I was still in the middle of a cul-de-sac, but a different one this time. Okay. Still kind of modern looking. There were some cul-de-sacs that were like super Western and all different type of stuff, but this one was close to modern looking. Okay. So then I realized that there's like about 7 or 8 people standing in front of me. Okay. This was so wild. 7 or 8 people standing in front of me. And I'm like, whoa, because on the other cul-de-sacs, I was by myself. So there's 7 or 8 people standing in front of me. And there's definitely this like one man that I'm focused on, but there's like different age groups of people. Like, I think there's like an older woman. There's like a young teenage kind of girl. Now, I do feel like most of them though, and I feel like maybe that's important to say too, that most of them are Caucasian. I don't know, like, if they were specifically Jewish, because the red heifer story, as it's mostly told, is talking about the third Jewish temple. I do feel like there was one Asian woman, and there could have been, like, one black person, but majority, like 5 of them at least, were definitely white people, whatever type of white person they were, I don't know. But anyways, there's this one guy that I was specifically focused on, and immediately when I saw him, I knew that he and all of these people had died in our reality. They were not alive in our reality anymore, like our mainframe reality. But some type of way, this ashes of the red heifer allowed me to travel to a parallel version of reality and come and talk to these people. Okay, it's crazy. And so I'm talking to him, and he's telling me about his story. And basically what I got from it was that when some people die, I don't know that this is like a general rule for everyone, I don't know about that, but some people, when they die, they go to alternate versions of reality. And their waiting room, instead of, sometimes you hear about like a spirit waiting room, their waiting room is actually living out a different parallel reality from like when they died. And they wake up in an alternate reality, the same age or around the same age. And they wake up in a parallel reality where they made a different huge life choice. Okay, so like for him, he died from, I think, a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. And he had like a wife and 2 kids and stuff like that. And he had like a particular job in the original reality. And when he was talking to me, I could see him in the original reality, like his life before he passed away. So in this parallel version of reality, he had actually went to an alternate universe. When he died, his soul went to a different parallel body of his. And in that one, actually, he had a different wife. So I think the wife that he had in this reality was like a wife that, I wouldn't say he necessarily married her for like financial reasons, but she was more of the financial person that made sense, I would say. And not that like he didn't love her, but the woman that he wanted to marry, the main difference between the 2 women is that the one he wanted to marry was definitely more, like free and not as like, logical and things like that. She was more like a free spirit, but she didn't want to have kids. And he really wanted to have kids. And so he ends up going with this wife because she made more sense and she wanted to actually settle down and start a family. Now, it's really tricky because because when he passes away, in whatever way, when it's like it's time to actually go away from parallel lives, he's going to have 2 wives. And that's going to have to be worked out, which is a whole nother situation. But anyways, that was pretty much everybody's story. So they literally went, when they died, their spirit went to a different body that they made a different huge life choice. Now, everyone, it wasn't like who they married. It could have been like where they went to school, or it could have been like living in different states. And living in different states, you have different neighbors, different friends, different jobs, and things like that. So anyways, I was there because I was bringing them back to the main reality, okay? I was bringing them back. So we're about to time travel, parallel travel, teleport, whatever it was, back to the main reality. This is like the main timeline, okay? And they weren't going to be able to spend forever, but they were going to be able to come back to life for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, they were able to reconnect with their family and friends and let their family and friends know that like when they died, they didn't actually die. They went to a parallel life. Now, the one that had 2 wives, I'm sure there's a lot of conversation there. But like, the other people, like they would just be like, yeah, in this other life, I went to New York instead of Chicago. I, blah, 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 blah. I quit the 20-year job. Instead of staying there, I quit and I went to go do my own business. And this is what I'm doing in this other life. And so they had 2 weeks. So yeah, they also had to like figure out like if their family even like believed in coming back from the dead. That was like a whole nother thing, because they didn't technically come back from the dead. They were like placed back in the timeline, like a Mandela effect. Okay, because this was instant. This wasn't like they like rose out of graves or something like that. It was almost like a Mandela effect, like literally like a Mandela effect. They were just placed back in the timeline for 2 weeks, and then they would be taken back out and put into their alternate timeline. And I feel like the main purpose of that was for their families, like for them to be able to reconnect, but also for their families to know that like life goes on after death, and that also a lot of their families' intuition about them was accurate. And what I mean by that is that in this other timeline before I showed up, they were very much immersed in the other timeline. Ooh, excuse me, child. Now I'm getting hiccups. Okay. I just been breathing. That's all I've been doing. What? Literally, I've just been breathing. I haven't even been doing anything. Now I have hiccups. That's crazy. Okay, so in this other timeline, child, okay, in this other timeline, they were very immersed in it. So it's not like they necessarily, quote unquote, remembered their main timeline, or necessarily that they passed away necessarily. However, a lot of them would have synchronicities or deja vu when, like, let's say they're like the guy, right? His wife from this timeline was thinking about him and missing him. It would actually have like a quantum effect that he would feel that in his kitchen with his other wife. That's whatever, but he would feel that in his kitchen, and how he would interpret that missing was like a level of deja vu and missing something that he couldn't interpret what it was that he was missing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not like there was like necessarily a remembrance of his wife from this timeline, because they still wanted them to be immersed in this other timeline. But he would receive those feelings. He just wouldn't know what those feelings were necessarily connected to. Now, there was like one girl who was like the younger kind of 18-year-old. And I think her life story was like she passed away in this life. And her big change was like that she went, I think, either out of state or to a different state to college. For her and like maybe another one or two of them, they would have dreams about themselves in this main reality. Like, it was very choppy and things like that, but it was almost like they thought that this was past life memories, or something like that, or some type of remembrance or something, but they couldn't quite catch what it necessarily was. Okay, it was so crazy. And so like they had these feelings and these deja vus and these synchronicities, but because the people that were kind of sending these emotions and feelings and memories to them were not in that reality, they didn't know where to kind of go with it. So anyways, pretty much the 2 weeks they were spent reconnecting, saying things that they didn't get to say, kind of tying up the loose ends, and then letting them know that like at some point in time when a certain nuclear family passed away, they would all be in a place together. And like I said, they would have to still work out certain things, like if they had another wife or children and one person didn't have children, they would have to work out those things, but they would all go together to, I guess, the next incarnations. It was actually really trippy. So this was like the third dream technically in this series, and at some point I'll do like the second one and the fourth one. So anyways, 8:53, 8:8. I associate that to time travel. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them below. I also have my email in the description box, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video with a friend.